Obtain final requirements. That's the first thing I want to talk to you about. Now, I get the chance to talk to hundreds of thousands of project managers in the last few years. And I do a lot of research with project managers. And there's something that they're missing. They're missing something important, or maybe it's what they have. They walk around like this. I am a project manager. Because if you don't have the final requirements, you might as well just hang yourself because you can't be successful. And they walk around with a noose around their neck all the time. I'm working on some project. But they're not successful, and they have no chance of being successful. Imagine you have a 6-month project. Every day you go to work for 6 months knowing you're not going to be successful. Oh, gee, that's a lot of fun. So, it's not an option. We need to obtain final requirements. We need to realize that sometimes you just have to fight it out. Sometimes you have to know what you need to do. Because when you're learning project management, or have learned it, project management is putting all these pieces together like an orchestra leader. When you manage an orchestra, or direct or conduct an orchestra, everyone on the team knows what they're doing. The violinist knows violin. She may be, or he may be, a world-class violinist. Somebody's got to bring the music together. So as a project manager, if you don't know what the pieces are, how can you do that? You're leading an orchestra, playing some songs, and all of a sudden an oboe shows up. Hi, I'm going to play. My boss told me to come. I don't know how to fit you into the orchestra. This is not an option. You'll see him with the sword buried in the ground. I need those requirements. Because then, if you run into a situation like this. Not only do you have to find the requirements, but you have to protect them. Anytime people want to make changes, it's not an option. You're supposed to laugh. I work hard finding these pictures. Here's a secret. Now, hopefully you're learning a lot of new tricks today. Here's another one. Get your mind around the person who has the requirements. This is their life. Sure, it's yours too, but this is their life. They are so overwhelmed with stuff to do, and they're saying, what, you want me to sit down and actually tell you what I want? Aren't you psychic? Can't you predict the future? And if you start to think about it from their point of view, getting finalized requirements aren't that hard. Put yourself in their shoes. What could you say to them to get them to give you requirements if you were them? What would they respond to if you were them? Once you start to think about it, you can figure out that stakeholders do not realize the consequences of giving you poor requirements or unfinished requirements. They've been getting away with it for years because project managers have come before you, have been wimps. They think, sure, I'll do it later. Well, who's going to tell them the requirement impact? Who's going to tell them the consequences? You. Okay, boss, are these requirements finalized? Well, okay, great. Well, for every change in your requirements, there'll be at least a 2-week delay to the project. Now they're starting to see the consequences. How about for you? Let's make this a little more humorous, maybe. This morning, when you were getting here, if you were told if you're here late, everybody will make fun of you, would you be on time? This is one of the tricks, so subtle, that hugely works in the real world. Another one, stakeholders, if left to themselves, now listen to this carefully, would determine what the project team should do, not what they need. You see, anyone who has an idea of what they want done will start to say, all right, well, you could do this, you could do this, you could do that, instead of what they need. So, most of the time, project managers never realize this, so the requirements they get are not requirements, they're how to do the project, which is your job. You can't allow them to leave to themselves. We need to try to give them more direction. We need to know what they need, not what to do. That's your job. If they can, stakeholders will do whatever they can, whatever, to not have to do this. They'd rather go to the dentist. Well, laugh, good. But you can use this information in your real world by pointing out to them, I know you have a lot of stuff to do, but if you don't sit down and give me the requirements now, I bet it's going to take you 5 extra days of your efforts on this project than it needed to. Do you want to spend the 5 days, or do you want to sit here for an hour? Notice the attitude. That's a project manager. Boss or stakeholder, I know that you have plenty of other things to do. And I know that you'd rather go to the dentist than sit down and figure out what it is. But you are concerned about how long this project is going to take. And if I don't get from you right now what you want, I can't get started. So help me deal with this incongruency. You notice that the project manager is not a wet doormat. Just say, walk all over me. I told you weren't allowed to lay on the floor. Last time I did it, the suit ripped. Everybody heard it too. Stakeholders and requirements. So, what do? Tell them stories, nightmares. Oh, remember that last project? We had this many changes, this many problems. Tell them stories that they care about. Maybe it's something that happened that affected them and they couldn't get on their vacation, or they couldn't get to their son's Little League game. Tell them a nightmare story and ask point blank, do you want this to happen on this project? If not, here's what I need. Then, one of my favorite tricks, and it's something that many of you know already, is to get the requirements in 3 levels. 1, 2, and 3. You know project management is a juggling act, and if later on you need to cut time, you cut requirements, you cut level 3s. You know which ones to cut to help you adjust the project. 1, 2, and 3. Not only is this a good idea for the project manager, but the stakeholders have a better mechanism to decide what it is they want, which is really important, which isn't. When they have to come up with 1, 2, and 3 for each of their requirements, they'll start to better understand what they need. So it helps both sides. These are just 2 little tricks. One of the other things that you can do is list in writing, as you see up here. List in writing the consequences. Put it in their face. If I don't get this, this is what will happen. Can you do that? Do you have enough guts? If you don't have final requirements, you can't plan the project, and you can't be successful. Now, I've talked about you being successful, but what about those cost overruns? How can your organizations be lean, mean, and fast and beat the competition if your projects are slagging behind, if they're cost overrun? And maybe, how can your company have enough money for your next raise if you've wasted it on your projects? This is what companies are starting to realize now. The cost of projects and the impacts. The numbers I've shown you before are widely circulated. And many managers are starting to see them, and it's a wake-up call for them, too, to realize they need to start supporting project management the right way. So, don't fail before you begin. You need to get those requirements. But make sure you realize that if you have a major effort to get requirements, it's not part of the project. You have 2 projects. Get the requirements. Once you have them, plan on how you're going to implement them. Silly as this sounds, it is probably one of the major mistakes people new to project management as well as people experienced make. They don't realize they're managing 2 projects. Get the requirements and implement them, 2. You can't be successful if you're planning a project that you don't know what you need to do.